When I look at all the games in the Cowabunga collection, memories fire off like pistons in my brain. I can recall the extreme joys of playing Turtles in Time, and the extreme sadness and frustration of the infamous Turtles NES platformer, plus everything in between. Like showing people the SNES version of Tournament Fighters in a bid to woo them over while they were busy playing other fighting games. As we do with many reviews dealing with compilations, let's take a look on what's on offer up front before we dig in. The arcade versions of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Turtles in Time, the numbered Turtles trilogy for the NES, Turtles in Time for the SNES, Hyperstone Heist for the Genesis, the numbered Turtles trilogy for the Game Boy, as well as Tournament Fighters for the NES, SNES, and Genesis. As I said before, quite the selection. There's so much to unpack there, and we'll start with the obvious, the games themselves. Turtles in Time is an absolute classic, and could very well be considered the crown jewel of the collection. In 2009, people are paying $10 for it on Xbox Live and PSN, or still playing the SNES original. Its time-bending setting, ahead of its time voice work, and varied level design helped catapult it to one of the greatest of all time genre status. I had a blast playing through it again in both SNES and arcade form, which mostly have aesthetic differences, with the SNES version sporting a bit more content and alterations, and it's a great way to kick off playing through the collection. Odds are, though, you'll have a few that you consider your personal favorites. Hyperstone Heist often comes up in a lot of Turtle game conversations, and it does hold up today. Outside of Turtles in Time, I played a lot of Tournament Fighters SNES, and even though it could be considered a wonky fighter overall, I appreciate the arcade and versus mode options, as well as the addition of a few out there characters. The brawlers slash beat 'em ups in the pack really are evergreen, and somewhat legitimize this entire collection in the eyes of many. Some of them have been released in various fashions over the years, but now you can pretty much gather all of them under one $40 roof. While I wouldn't necessarily call them underrated, all three Game Boy games feel like natural evolutions of the formula set forth in the NES platformer, with simpler, more forgiving level layouts and more direct control of the turtles themselves. That's especially true for the third entry, which has abilities specific to each turtle. Speaking of, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 Radical Rescue is definitely the standout, as it uses a Metroid-like framework. It's actually one of the meatier games in the collection, and will likely surprise some people with how much there is to it. As a whole, there's something about the standout turtle visuals that still hold up, even if the aesthetic of some of the NES and Game Boy titles has aged less gracefully. The distinct cartoony nature of the source material shines through here, and there's a reason why individual turtle beat-em-ups are considered part of the golden age of that era, alongside classics like Simpsons arcade game. Naturally, matching out how much each entry is worth to you can be tough. Yet, you really don't need to suffer in silence when it comes to discerning whether or not it's worth buying in, even if you only like a few games. There's a lot of playthroughs of every single one of these games, and plenty of info out there. Once you're past that stage, it's time to look at the collection as a collection. We have great news on that front, as Digital Eclipse has done right by the Turtles' legacy. So one of the biggest features of the Cowabunga collection is the Watch mode. You can kick off every game with an automated assist mode, where it plays through a run from the start. Here, you can fast forward and decide to jump in at any point. While you don't necessarily need them for select breezier games, the most obvious choice for this feature is Turtles NES, especially for folks who haven't beaten it yet. It creates a level of accessibility that essentially justifies games that forever frustrated you growing up, even if it doesn't fully salvage them. Games also have enhancements, cheats, including options like a level select and extra lives. Strategy guides are also in, and they're lovely. They're crafted for the Cowabunga collection in the style of classic 90s tip sections and magazines, and they're super quirky, with some actual useful info to boot. What blew me away though is the ability to sometimes manually click on a strategy guide section and instantly turn on whatever feature it's suggesting. This includes the chance to see secret endings and the like without having to actually play through it yourself. The standout feature for me is the extras menu. Here you'll find boxes and manuals, ads and catalogs, and even comic book covers and still screens from several TV shows. There's behind the scenes style guides and bibles the designers had to follow for the characters, and a music player. It's a comprehensive look at Turtles' history, and I surprisingly found myself digging into it for an hour before actually playing any game. Local play is in, and each game shows the number of supported players plainly on the screen. Although we couldn't test online play, the Cowabunga collection has an option for it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Cowabunga Collection is a great repackaging of a set of uneven classic games. I'm in no rush to play Turtles NES again, for instance, but I can see myself diving into the extras menu and breaking out any number of beat-em-ups with friends and family at pretty much any point. With the amount of care put in by Digital Eclipse, this is one of the best ways these games have been presented since they were released. Thank you for watching today's review. If you liked it, please remember to like and subscribe to see the full written review, more game news, and game reviews. Head on over to Destructoid.com.